In this sacred place, we create the structures that lift up the downtrodden, set the captives free, and heal the brokenhearted. We have learned that to be fully human is to be fully divine, and that with a little help from our friends, we can each tell our own unique story. So today we have a special service. You notice that we have two people inconspicuously seated up front, Larry and Sandy Feldman, who have been a very important part of this church community and the community at large. I won't rehearse any of what the many things they have done, are the splendid kind of people they are. So it's just good to have you here. But we are saying goodbye today to them. When is the exact date you are moving to? May 3rd. May 3rd. Okay, the exact date. So, okay, but you still have a lot of stuff to get rid of, right?
Oh, do we ever?
Yeah. So, okay.
We light our chalice this morning in the spirit of gratitude, thankful for the Feldmans' years of service to this community, for building bridges across the divides in Southwest Michigan, for bringing together people of all colors, backgrounds, and genders, especially children, so they may grow to appreciate the value of diversity and of each individual, for promoting a love of music, of community, of one another, for helping us navigate past historical differences into a brighter future. Thank you, Larry and Sandy, for being leaders, visionaries, peacemakers, comforters, and friends.
Well, it's a great joy for us to be here. We feel honored and moved to tears. Thank you all. So this is a picture of us soon after we got married. We were living in Oak Park, Illinois, and became very actively involved in two initiatives. One called Project Unity, to bring people from different racial groups together to get to know each other, to become friends, to break down the barriers of stereotypes and prejudice. And the second was an initiative trying to get the village council, this is 30 years ago, to pass a regulation that would allow LGBT folks not to get married, it was too early for that yet, but to have partnership agreements, which would allow things like healthcare and other stuff. And it was a big struggle. A lot of people didn't want to do that, but we joined with others, and finally it did get passed, and we're very proud of that.
This picture is that's a different picture. Let me just add on to Larry's comment about the previous picture. I was trying to think of, with the pictures that we discovered, what was the message, what was part of what we discovered at the time. And one of the things that we discovered was that speaking out doesn't always make you popular in the neighborhood. And so when Larry's talking about the initiative to make sure that the LGBT folks in our community were treated with all the rights that everyone else had. We had a big sign in our front yard in support of their movement and hoping that the city council would make sure that people that had worked for the city for all those years, that their spouses were included in the insurance provisions, et cetera, as were those spouses of straight couples. So we had this big sign in our yard, and a woman across the street pounded on our door and said, "You're destroying the neighborhood. And I demand you take that sign down because I have to see it out of my front door." And I was reminded of how many times it's been clear to us that you have to use your voice, even when you're not popular, even when some people object, that we can't be silent in the face of oppression.
This is us a little later. We had moved to Southwest Michigan and begun almost immediately to involve ourselves in a variety of social justice initiatives even though when we first moved here, we were sure that what we were going to do is take leisurely strolls along the beach and in the woods and relax and do less. But actually, it's been a total delight to be involved in many wonderful initiatives with many wonderful people, many of whom are in this room today. This is us in the Canadian Rockies, the most beautiful place that we have ever been or seen.
And at that time, we were under the illusion that we were real hikers.
This is us at Zion, the second most beautiful place we've ever been.
And we were almost toward the top at this juncture. And I was thinking when we were sharing these pictures with Joanne, that when you're doing social justice work, when you're trying to make sure that everybody counts, it feels like you're trying to move mountains. It feels like a climb that you just can't complete. But if you just go the next step, you can make progress.
This is us. One of the initiatives we became involved with up here was the hosts program in the Benton Harbor schools. And it was a wonderful program where volunteers from the community would spend time each week working with some of the kids in the elementary schools. And the symphony orchestra had an event that children were invited to. So we brought some of the children that we've been working with to get to know the instruments, hear the orchestra, and learn a little bit about that kind of music. It was great.
You were assigned the same child, or if you signed on for multiple kids on different days throughout those school years. So you did form an attachment. And this was the performance of Peter and the Wolf. And at the intermission, they all wanted to go to the table where they were selling things. And it was striking because everything was really expensive and geared toward people that could afford a nice cello for their child and a new violin case, et cetera. And so we scoured the table and we discovered these plastic placemats that had all the instruments in the orchestra. So we bought them each a plastic placemat and we said, quietly, I want you to pause when there's a pause in the instruments and then a solo instrument comes in all by itself, see if you can find it on your placemat. Well, not only were they enthralled and pointing to the instrument and trying to identify what they were hearing, but children behind us with their parents were leaning over the seat, saying, that's the flute, it's the flute. And so, it just showed that division isn't between children, between those that have and those that haven't. They all want to play in the same pool.
This is us in California with our oldest son on your far right and our youngest son on your far left, and all three of our grandchildren. And this is the reason why we're moving to California.
We had many years of tearful goodbyes and hellos. And when they'd see pictures of Larry accompanying All God's Children or me directing, they would say, well, why don't you just leave those children, Bubby and Zadie, and come to be with your children? And so the pressure has mounted through the years. And it was actually very hard when we first put the house on the market 6 years ago. And we announced at a choir rehearsal that we were thinking of moving to California. Some of the children started crying, which, they weren't even Jewish, and we felt guilty. And then, when we reassured them that it'd be a long time, and then one of the dads that was working in the kitchen with some of the other folks, he said, if the parents cry, would that change things?
So COVID changed things, and Sandy's medical problems changed things, but we're finally able to make this move. But it's hard. We have loved our time in Southwest Michigan, and we've loved the many wonderful people it's been our privilege to get to know and work with. So this is at
Right
the
before COVID?
late lamented coffee house in Benton Harbor, where we were privileged to talk about our book, Building Bridges Across the Racial Divide, and answer questions and say a bit about contact theory, which fundamentally says the best way to break down stereotypes and prejudice is for people from different groups of all kinds to get to know one another. And that's been generally the theme of everything we've done here.
One of the many things that I love about Larry is that we share this love of teaching and learning and connecting with people. And so this was about a book talk, but we also team taught for many years a class we developed at Lake Michigan College for the psychology department called The Psychology of Stereotypes and Prejudice. And felt like we were a pretty good match in that Larry is amazing about statistics and research, and some of you know that from his frequent many-year letters to the editor. And I love stories. And so for me, a concept comes alive when I hear the story of how that impacted on people. So we would pass the baton back and forth. And so for the statistical and research people, they loved the hard data. And then for the storytellers, they loved hearing what one child said when first brought together with other children from across the river.
So this is us with the Hamptons. You see Corey, who directed Lean on Me. And it looks like, oh, there's Kenitha. I see I'm being blocked by the reflection. And Kenitha Hampton, who sadly, during the COVID epidemic, passed away. But we loved them, and we loved spending time with them. And we're at a football game where their oldest son was the star halfback for the Lakeshore High School team. And just spending informal time has been a huge part of what we've learned about contact theory. It's not just going to meetings. It's not even just working on projects. Sometimes it's just going to a football game together.
You saw some of Corey's style directing the choir. That was at the art show, the Crassel Art Show. And so they kind of put us in front of the Crassel, and those were some of our teens doing Lean on Me. And Corey had this amazing style where you never quite knew when the song was going to begin or end, when you would shift into call and response. And we've had retreats through the years with the famous Chicago Children's Choir, which is audition only, people with PhDs directing and conducting. And initially, Larry and I were really intimidated when they wanted to do some joint workshops and performances with us, because everybody counts. You don't have to audition. Everybody's welcome. And some of us were directing that had no directing experience. But after our first experience all together, we got a call from the children's choir in Chicago, and they said, we'd like to learn how to do Lean on Me Corey Hampton style. So, the fact that we can be exposed to what we all bring to the experience, and we're richer for it, was very clear to us. And it was probably only after 5 of the 23 years of the choir that Corey and Kenitha started calling us Mama Sandy and Daddy Larry, and their kids call us Grandma Sandy and Grandpa Larry.
For which we feel very honored. And this is just us. Oh, this was taken for a magazine article, a number of couples doing social justice work. We were honored to be part of it. And protests have been an important part of what we've gotten involved in. This is us singing with Aidan Schnell in downtown St. Joe. If any of you have not heard Aidan Schnell and his group of fellow performers. They often come back from college in the summertime and perform at various venues in Southwest Michigan. They are wonderful. We were honored that Aiden played with us, and we tried to get our message across through music.
This was right before the last presidential election, and we were singing with a group outside of Fred Upton's office. And a bunch of people that had professionally made Trump shirts and a whole lot of professionally made handouts sort of crowded us out and tried to take over. Gloria was there making usual good trouble. And so we decided we needed to beef up the music scene in order to have our numbers and our passion reflected. And Larry and I bought a megaphone. And so we rewrote the words to "This Land Is Your Land" and a couple other rebel-rousing tunes. And then the St. Joe police came and told me that I was defying the noise ordinance in St. Joseph, and I had to stop using the megaphone. And
It didn't stop us from singing.
we just sort of raised the personal volume to the degree that we could. We felt this kinship that we needed to make a difference. And before I even met Larry, he was leading a protest with the other residents at a hospital in Chicago against the Vietnam War. And I was getting pelted with tomatoes in a civil rights march in St. Louis, Missouri. So there was a feeling when we discovered each other in our professional work that this was a kindred spirit.
Figured we could get pelted together. So that's a little of our story.
I'm Julie. When Sandy and Larry Feldman fell in love, the universe rejoiced, believing that this dynamic duo would contribute so much to our world. You have not disappointed. You have helped people through your psychiatry and psychotherapy professions, made music with your social justice in your music. You've sung with Larry on guitar at local venues, made music with children. Years ago, you gave us a Seder. I don't know that we've had one since. And I've really enjoyed Larry's frequent letters to the HP discussing important issues. And who has the greatest smile in the world? And after I read something that Sandy wrote a few years ago, you will be absolutely amazed at what she did today. Life continues to remind me that joy and sorrow, reassurance and fear, hope and dread can coexist even in the same chapter of our lives. For the past 2 days, I've been immersed in testing, doctor conferences, and now a 6.5-hour infusion at Mott's Children's Hospital on the U of M hospital campus. I'm touched and grateful that family and friends continue to ask for updates. I'm so grateful that I'm not alone on this journey. Yesterday, my dear Larry and I rode an emotional roller coaster. Surprised neither of us has suffered whiplash. The cancer blood work came in early and the numbers were so reassuring. Normal range, 0 to 35. I'm at 6, my lowest number ever, still clearly in remission. We were exuberant and are still holding on to that blessing for dear life. Other numbers were much less reassuring. My vision tests showed further deterioration. The 2 immune suppressant drugs I've been on are not holding the antibodies at bay. My visual window to the world is closing in. And so today we added a powerful drug delivered through day-long infusions. Larry and I have given the disappointment, the sadness, and fear some airtime. And now we're working on developing hope that this new intervention will succeed where others have failed. It seems fortuitous that there is no room in either rheumatology or oncology infusion units. And so I'm up for infusion at the Children's Hospital. My directions included take a left at Big Bird. My name tag features an array of happy animals, and there's a Valentine full of candy on my bedside tray. I have a team of ultra gentle and nurturing nurses and techs, and there's a surprising amount of laughter coming out of this room. They're doing vitals every 15 minutes for 7 hours. So if you'd like to know my blood pressure, I've got it close at hand. I feel so lucky to have access to wonderful medical care, to have loving family and friends, and to have some ways of thinking about life that allow me to navigate somewhat successfully through the rapids when I hit them. If you're struggling, and so many of us are, be a good advocate for yourself. Draw strength from those who love you. Remind yourself of the mix that is life. And after acknowledging the hard stuff, look for the light. There's always light, even in the darkest of days. Almost done here. Bye-bye, Big Bird.
A local chapter of PFLAG was one of the outcomes of a buff retreat in February of 2000. The PFLAG chapter was active from July 2000 to July 2014, with most meetings held at Buff. One of the chapter activities during those years was providing a workshop for the fall conference of the Berrien County Intermediate School District. One of the ways that Sandy and Larry supported PFLAG was being presenters for those workshops. In 2004, the workshop was a 2-hour, 3-part workshop on what teachers can do about homophobic attitudes and behavior. The workshop included a formal presentation, a short video, extensive discussion, and role-play practice dealing with situations that have arisen or might arise in the classroom or other school situations. Larry and Sandy's bio submitted as part of the application to do that workshop is informative. Dr. Larry Feldman is a psychiatrist. His wife, Sandy Feldman, is a psychotherapist. They limit the number of patients they accept, but currently practice in both Chicago and Michigan. Both are known for their commitment to social issues and finding solutions for social problems. One of their commitments is to PFLAG. In addition to university teaching, Larry and Sandy Feldman have created and taught a course at Lake Michigan College on the psychology of stereotyping and prejudice. They provide leadership in the Council for World-Class Communities, where Sandy is the co-lead for the community outreach domain. They are two people essential to the All God's Children's Choir, a choir of children from Benton Harbor, St. Joseph, and the surrounding area. They are both active in Riversong Musical Organization and perform for special occasions and causes. Their expertise and commitment bring them here today as facilitators of a workshop to help teachers deal effectively with the problems homophobic attitudes and feelings create in the schools. Sandy and Larry, today we want you to know that we recognize and appreciate who you are and what you have done. Your actions have fostered communities where individuals are loved, respected, and enabled to fulfill their potential. We thank you and wish you a future permeated with peace and joy. Thank you.
I would like to just add that Charles and Dorothy Long started that PFLAG chapter and were absolutely the foundation of everything that we ever did, all of us in that group. Thank you, Charles and Dorothy.
I don't know if I'm going to be able to get through this. I'm a very emotional person. But I went into my files to look and see when did we start all this? When did this begin? So I found one sheet of paper that said 1999, Twin Cities calling all colors. And Larry and I'm losing myself. Larry and Sandy, if you want any of these papers, you're welcome to them. So you might want a few of them. Anyway, so I, of course, immediately, when somebody told me about this, decided I better be part of it. Now, this was 1999, cities calling all colors. And it started with a idea from some people way down south of here called Magical Rain Theater. And it was a proposed project design calling all colors. And so we decided, a group of people decided that we would try to do something about this idea. It was such a good one. And get the children from Benton Harbor and from St. Joe and Stevensville and anyone else, any other city that would like to be part of it, to be part of it. And so we were on our way. And it took quite a few meetings and ideas, and we wanted it to be right. So we made sure that we did the best we could with it. And so these two sheets right here give a lot of information about the proposed project design, calling all colors, by this Musical Rain Theater Works, it was called. And then we were off then. There was no stopping us. Everybody was so involved and so willing to do something about getting the people from Benton Harbor to work with the children and with the children from the other side of the river, so they say. So we did, and I must say it was a wonderful success. Everybody was involved in it, and it will continue. From what I hear, isn't it going to continue? Yes, it will continue. So that is good news. When we first started, anybody who volunteered would have a job. And one of them, of course, the most important one is getting the children from Benton Harbor with the children from the other cities. And we were able to do that with much ado from the Board of Education and other people to get transportation and all that stuff. And the first place we stayed, I think, was the Salvation Army. And then we went on from there. I think we did, we also were active. When we finished there, we went over to the, what was it? Boys and Girls Club, yes. And from there, where did we go?
That's where we stayed.
You stayed there. Mm-hmm. Okay. But then we also were in a couple of schools too. Yeah, and we were in some schools too. So I have all kinds of pictures here that I will give to them because I'm sure they'll want them. This one, and here's another one. You can see everybody, front page people, and here's one of the children. So these are all for you to take with you. You might want to share them with some people out in California. And if you didn't have your children out there, I would say, what are you going to California for? Well, I feel a real kinship to Larry and Sandy because I have a father who's Jewish, and so part of me belongs to them too. And I love it. And it's a wonderful legacy to have. And I'm so proud of them. I'm so proud of myself. So I have to say that because it's important to me to say that. The stories I have to tell are stories of love. I don't know what else to say except that we had so much fun. At the end of every year, we would have a picnic, and we would have all the children come from both the St. Stephenville and St. Joe and that area, and also the people from Benton Harbor. And it was a wonderful, wonderful time because the children played with each other. The mothers and fathers talked to the other brothers and fathers, and there was no separation at that time. It was just a wonderful, wonderful experience to have that every year. And I hope we can continue it. We will try. I'm sure we will. Yes. And as far as the work that we did, well, at first we had a program where we all had to go to this program to learn how to be a good school teacher and how to work with the children and what to say to them and how to treat them and all those things before we could have them in a classroom. And we did that. It was really so well done from the beginning to the end and continues to be that. But we grew so much that now we have teachers who are all teachers who have more licenses to teach. We were just teaching because we wanted to, and I loved it. And I think my son even taught one year, and he liked it too. But then we moved on to bigger and better things like the learning and teachers who got paid. Well, we never had that before, so that was exciting. So there are so many things that I can tell you. The bus rides, the kids on the bus and getting off the bus and coming in, and their funny ways of playing with one another and what they learned and how they by the time they would go to 2 sessions, there would be one at the beginning of the year and then one at the end of the year, and then we'd have our big picnic. And the children, by the second time, knew each other. And so there was this wonderful friendship, and that was so good to see. Say, one little kid say to another, "Oh, hi, how are you?" Or something. And so those things were so important to experience that it made me feel so good, so good. And as far as if there's anything else you would like to know about these calling out colors, just ask. There was so much to it. There was the bus rides. There was the curriculum. We had a wonderful curriculum. It was not a little fly-by-night thing. It was so well done with everything. So I'm very proud to be part of that, the Calling All Colors. And I'm so proud of being a friend of Larry's and Sandy's. And I also want to say that I'll miss them very much, but I know what it is to go be near your children. It's important, and I'm sure it is to you. And what else do I want to say? There's so many things going on in my head that it's hard. I found a bunch of pictures too that I'll give them that I have because this whole thing has been so important. When I have to tell this story, even though it was just told to a few people earlier today, but I had it on my head to tell this story because I thought it was so funny. But when Sandy became ill, she mentioned that she liked chicken soup, and would I make some chicken soup? Because she figured with that Jewish background, I would know how to make chicken soup. Well, I just want to tell you a little secret. I never made chicken soup. So I didn't know how. So I went looking through all the recipes from chicken soup, and I found out that in order to have a good chicken soup, you had to have chicken feet in it. So I thought, where the heck I'm going to find chicken feet. So, so I went around to all the markets. There weren't any. Well, that little shop that's closed now down in next to the Buck restaurant, right there, it was a very nice little delicatessen kind of fancy food place. So I said, oh, well, I might as well go in there. What the heck? All they can say is no, like every other place did. So I went, and all of a sudden, this girl came running out from the back, and she said, loud, we have chicken feet. And everybody around just started to laugh. They said, chicken feet. They thought that was the funniest thing they'd ever heard. So that was the story of that. But I have improved since then. I really have. So, so I just want you to know that. So, and the music has been really important to me. I loved listening to the music. I loved having the children sing. And I loved afterward when they would just all get together, and Larry and Sandy always had treats for them or a meal for them. And they loved it. And that was the time for them to get together and really talk to each other and just be what kids like to be, just crazy, wild kids. And they were wonderful. And I hope that we can continue this in the same way. We will try our best, Sandy, Larry, will. I don't know if I'll be able to, because you know how it goes. You get a little too old for those things. Sorry to say, but that's how it goes. I'll carry on as long as I can. Both of you, I will. And it's because I love you both. And I know that you love being with your children as I love being with mine. So I'm going to cry because it's really sad, and I'm an emotional human being. So thank you for being part of this community. I don't know what we would have done without you, frankly. It's brought together so many people. When I first moved here, somebody said to me, don't dare go to Benton Harbor. And I said, why not? Well, there's all those Black people there. And I said, well, and so I went there. And of course, I made a lot of friends there. So I have as many friends in Benton Harbor now that I have of color than I have in St. Joe or any other place. And that's important to me, very important to me. I have some of the best friends in the world. You just had Beth Hare here, my very, very dear friend. She and I are like real buddies. We really care about each other. We've started to exchange food, and she sends me the most wonderful food that I don't make. So now I'm making some of her kind of food. And so that's a lot of fun. So there's so much that we don't know, so much we can learn. They're so rich in their own culture and in the things they love and the things they do that I want to learn some of those too and be part of that. So I hope that I can, and I hope that all of you can too. And thank you again, Sandy and Larry.
Dave did give me the words to his reading just in case there were problems over Zoom, and there are. So I'm going to read what Dave wrote. He wrote about All God's Children's Choir, and I think you know that his daughters were involved for quite some time. So he wrote, good morning to Larry, Sandy, and Buff from Oregon. Sorry I could not attend this farewell service in person, but I feel honored that Buff has asked me to participate and reflect on the All God's Children's Choir. My children, Dave's children, along with several other children from Buff, participated in this choir for several years. In fact, there's some participating now. Larry and Sandy combined their musical abilities and their organizational skills to create an avenue to get children and their families together. families from different racial, religious, and ethnic backgrounds to sing, harmonize, learn, and grow together. Like Calling All Colors and the more recent Neighbors Organizing Against Racism, All God's Children Choir is another successful effort at racial integration in Berrien County, and specifically between the Twin Cities of St. Joseph, which is 90% white, and Benton Harbor, 90% Black. As we learned during some of Buff's past religious education in services, Buff, as with other UU congregations, has historically been comprised of a higher percentage of white people than the local or national racial percentages of our overall population. This racial imbalance is an ongoing issue for UUs in general. The All God's Children's Choir is one of the many efforts of Larry and Sandy to address this concern. Rehearsing, breaking bread, and performing together provide a respite from the segregation of our society for the children in the choir and their families. And these activities create an opportunity for lasting relationships. Larry, Sandy, and the other choir directors choose music that speaks to the human need for acceptance, respect, and compassion. By learning and singing these songs from a variety of ethnic and religious cultures, sometimes in different languages, participating families hope to, quote, indoctrinate, he says, in parentheses, to use and or to flip the current political terminology. So in that sense, to indoctrinate our children into becoming more accepting, respectful, and compassionate human beings. The purpose of the choir is that by teaching our children to sing in harmony with others, we encourage them to see and learn the benefits of living in harmony with others. While this purpose alone is more than sufficient for the choir, there are many additional benefits to singing in this choir. A vast majority of people have stated that what gives them the most anxiety is public speaking. The choir's public performances help our children reduce this anxiety and could contribute to building up their self-confidence and self-esteem, as you could see from those very confident singers in the last video. The children in the choir have performed with many professionals. To paraphrase from an online post, since the choir's initial performance at the Race Relations Council Awards program in 2001, All God's Children's Choir has performed on more than 90 occasions. These special events have included the following, and Dave lists them here. Several performances at Lake Michigan College and Andrews University to commemorate the birthday of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., a special Habitat for Humanity performance for former President Jimmy Carter, concerts in Grand Rapids and Traverse City for state and national teachers conferences, joint appearances with the Chicago Children's Choir in Michigan and Chicago, a holiday traditions concert with the Southwest Michigan Symphony Orchestra and Metropolitan Opera star Angela Brown, and performances with renowned professional musicians, Tom Chapin, Josh White Jr., Gemini, I remember Gemini, LaRon Williams, Nikki Harris, Ben Vereen, and Pamela Chappell, with whom the choir recorded an award-winning CD titled A Little Sunshine. Dave again says, I believe that both of my daughters, Emily and Eliza, he doesn't name them here, but we know them with love because they grew up in our RE program. I believe that both of my daughters who sang in the choir and who participated with several of the performers mentioned would say that their experience with the choir has greatly enriched my life. I am so grateful that Sandy and Larry have played such an uplifting role and brought so much joy to me and to my family. Your departure from our community is a great loss for all of us, but we wish you, Larry and Sandy, all the best in your life journey. An emphatic thank you.
But I have to say that there are some serious questions about your relationship that haven't been answered here today. Which is like, how did someone like Larry get someone as hot as Sandy? Yeah, it's been on my mind. So, how many? Did you guys hear the opening hymn we played? And did you hear Sandy's voice carry over that, and how lovely it was? That she has just such a beautiful soprano voice, and Larry plays guitar, so they make a great team together. But when I was asked to maybe say a word or two, the first thing that came to my mind is the Lamed Vav. And how many people here know what the Lamed Vav is? They're the 36 wise Jewish people who care about the world and care about it so much that if even one of the Lamed Vav were to cease to exist, the whole world would cease to exist. And certainly Larry and Sandy are people that I think qualify for the Medvav. So you're lovely people, and we're very grateful for all you've done for this community. One of the most, well, a couple memories. One is I was having a sticky issue myself, which I occasionally have. And some time ago, so I called up Larry and Sandy on a Sunday afternoon, which is a great time to call people. And they were on their way to a restaurant, but still they talked to me for a good half an hour as they drove and I drove, and they were able to help me sort some things out in ways that not only helped the situation, but also helped me stay plumb and level in my own spiritual center. So another time that one of the most memorable times was this is, I don't know, quite a few years ago. Larry and Sandy were performing at church, and most of you know that Sandy is very talented and prolific at the spoken word. And they were playing several songs, but in between one of the songs, Sandy was making some comments, and then she would pause, and then Larry would raise his hand over the guitar, and he was just about ready to start when Sandy would start in again. And then when she was done, Larry raised his hand, and Sandy started in again. Now, this happened about 4 times. And at about the 4th time it happened, I saw ever so slightly, just ever so slightly, I saw Larry raise his eyes to heaven. Now, to a lay person, or to a person who's not studied anything, that could appear to be a look of irritation. But I chose to think of it as a prayer of thanks for a woman who is so talented and so valuable. But at any rate, if anyone asks me about Larry and Sandy, who they are, I'm just going to say Lamed Vav. They walk in the divine light.
Larry and Sandy, may love guide you in your journey forward, joy meet you at every turn, and hope be your daily practice. May our love and gratitude accompany you in all your future endeavors as you bring hope, joy, and harmony to your new community. In your absence, we will strive to carry on your work and uphold your vision. And we will be forever grateful for all you have done to open our hearts and minds and build bridges here in beautiful Southwest Michigan. Farewell.